Hi, this is Maureen Taylor, and I'm the co-chair of the Central Jersey Alumni Technology Committee. And this video is a follow-up to the webinar that we gave about our e-attendance app. Now, if we recall, we use the Delta app, and the Delta app provides a QR code that is based on the system ID, a member system ID, which is scanned and validated by the CodeREADr app. And the CodeREADr app, as we said, is a highly customizable third-party scanning application that we use. And we use it for, it has an attendance service that we use. And there's a database that's stored on the CodeREADr server, which is used to validate the scan records. And it also produces scan records from which we generate an attendance sheet. So this video will talk about how to configure the CodeREADr app, how to create a database from the roster, how to upload the database to CodeREADr, how to access the scan records and filter the scan records, and then how to create an attendance sheet. Okay? So first thing you do is you want to create a CodeREADr login. And once you do that, you sign in. I'm already signed in here. And you'll see several items at the top here in the menu: scans, services, databases, users, questions, and knowledge database. And we're going to talk about these three here: scan, services, and databases. And first off, talk about services. So there's two services that we configure. One is the online GBM attendance, and then there's the offline GBM attendance. GBM stands for General Body Meeting. That's just something that we put in here. That's what we call our chapter meetings. And you can name it whatever you wish. And there's some other services in here. There's asset tracking, which is like an inventory service, and then there's like access control and ticket validation for event management. We're just going to talk about the attendance services here. And CodeREADr provides an example when you first open an account, and then you edit the service according to how you want it to work. And there's two services here that we defined. One is called online, and the other one is offline. And for the online service, the database against which scans are validated is stored in the cloud. It's on the CodeREADr server. So when a scan is done, the validation goes across the internet. So you can imagine it's a little bit slower, and it's also dependent on having an internet connection up. So if you have bad Wi-Fi, that would be a bad problem. So we recommend offline attendance service for a number of reasons. Not only that it's quicker, it also doesn't depend on Wi-Fi. You can get your quorum on the device, and you can upload your scans later. And in fact, so we do recommend the offline attendance for use for member-only meetings. And here is a small, a summary of what that service looks like. So scans will be validated offline, as I mentioned, with this database. The database will be downloaded to the device before scans are started. And then once the scanning is done, after the meeting is over, you can upload the scans to the server. When the uploads are done, the uploaded scan records are sent to an email that you configure. And then we also treat duplicate scans as invalid. Okay? So we're going to show you the details of how that service is configured by hitting on Edit Service. And when you go to Edit Service, you'll see some items up at the top here. We'll say Type, Users, Questions, Advanced, and Done. Okay, so first off, it says offline GBM. That's the title of the service. You can name it anything that you wish. And then there's a message here that shows when you start the service on your device. It says be sure to refresh your service and download the database before scanning. If you need any help, send mail here. You can put your phone number in there if you wish. Then you configure which database that you want to validate your scans against. There's a drop-down menu here. You select your database. There's a reason for Lexar here. We'll talk about that later. Then you say how you're going to treat your duplicate scans. Now, if you're just in testing mode and you're testing a new device, for example, or just seeing how the service works, you can click on valid, and it allows duplicate scans to be valid. But if you're in an official meeting, you want an accurate quorum. So if a SOAR scans more than once, you only want to count them once. So a duplicate scan would be invalid. But of course, if you want to use that service for the next meeting, whether it be a week later, a month later, or the next day, you want to periodically reset the duplicate status. So, you scan again, that same source scans again. You don't want her to be rejected. So you had to reset the duplicate status periodically, and we do it on an everyday basis here. Okay? So basically, you go to your meeting, you set up your device, you do your scans. Um, once the meeting is over, you upload those scan records to the server, and then you wait for an interval to go by for the duplicate status to be reset. And then after that interval goes by, you go down to the device and you refresh the service on the device, and that resets the duplicate status, so you can use that device for the next meeting. So this is an important concept to understand, the reset of duplicate status. Okay, so we go to users. We only have one user configured right now. If you're doing some shared administration or you're doing some testing, you might want to allow additional users to use the service. But right now we only have one. Click on questions. We don't ask any questions at this point. We want it to go very fast, so we don't want any stoppage of the scanning. So there may be in the future we want to ask a question if it's an invalid scan, like if it's a duplicate scan. Maybe we ask the question, are you scanning out? That's something that we'll look at. Or if you're using CodeREADr for inventory service, you might ask questions and collect data when you scan an item that you're putting into inventory. But right now we're not asking any questions. Then in the Advanced tab, there's several things that we're configuring. One here is the scanner configurations to improve performance. We're focusing on two types of barcodes. One is the PDF 417 type of barcode, which is like the vertical line barcode you might see on the supermarket key tag. Okay, and then you have the square QR code that we're optimizing. For access, we're allowing users to delete scans or edit answers. Only administrators would do that. And then on device, you see that duplicate scans are invalid. That's already been set in another screen. And then once the scans are uploaded, the records are sent to this email address that we configured. You saw that in the summary. And the records are in a file that have a particular format according to this template. So you configure this template. You would go basically, you can create a template on the scan tab or here. This is called the attendance sheet template. And the scan records have a lot of data in it. And we're only choosing 3 pieces of data from the scan record. The barcode, which is the system ID, the result, which is a HTML construct from which we're extracting some information for the attendance sheet, and then the timestamp. Okay, so those are the only things that we're extracting, and these 3 things get fed into the attendance sheet generator. So it has to be those 3 things. Okay. Then we going down to capturing here. We're altering some text, some default text for when an invalid barcode is detected if the value is not in the database. This is the default message, and we're changing that to say invalid barcode, not in roster. Please see the Sergeant at Arms for sign-in. We're also allowing auto next scan. So, after each scan, it doesn't wait, it doesn't delay, it just goes to the next scan after a 2-second delay here. You could configure it to discard any invalid records and move on, but we chose to, automatically move on if it's valid. If it's invalid, it halts. Perhaps you want the system Sergeant at Arms to intervene, find out what's going on, and then you hit next to go to the next one. And we have, like I said, we have a 2-second delay. That seems enough to see the picture and move on. Then we have a kiosk mode, which is like a hands-free mode. So people just can walk up to the device and scan their code. You would have to enter a PIN code here that we configured in order to get to any other parameters on the phone itself. So it's kind of a security mechanism. So you would enter that PIN code to get access to upload the scan records or manually enter a system ID, which you can do. And then under miscellaneous, we have some labels that we change, the system ID and status. And then down here under hex color utility, we chose red. Okay, so that's how you configure the service. Once you configure the service, you don't change the service, okay? Unless you're trying to, optimize things. But, once you get it working and it's working like you want it, you really don't change the service. So you do it once and leave it alone. Okay, so let's talk about databases. And we have a demo database that we're going to use. First thing we're going to do is learn how to generate a database. So if you recall, we have a tool called Attendance Database Generator. And this is a tool that CJA created. It's an Excel-based tool. It has macros in it that hides the complexity. And you generate the database based on information from your roster. So I think I have a demo roster here. And so what you do is, you take your roster and you delete everything, delete the header and any other columns other than system ID, first name, and last name. And then you swipe across these 3 columns, okay? You copy, okay? You go to the Attendance Database Generator, you swipe across these 3 columns, you paste, and then you hit Generate Attendance Database. Okay? And that creates it's kind of hard to see here, but it creates a database that you would save to a CSV file, a comma separated value Excel file. It's a CSV file. So you save it into a CSV file, and I think I've already done that. Let's see here. Yeah. Okay. So I've already done that. So this is a CSV file that we're going to upload to the CodeREADr server. Okay. Get rid of these here and go back to CodeREADr. All right. So we're going to do an edit on this database, demo database, and there's some values in it already. So first thing you want to do is, if you have an existing database, you want to make sure you clear the database first. Always do that. So you hit clear and then you hit empty database. And you'll get a message that says database will be cleared shortly. Once that goes away, you go and refresh your screen, and now you'll see that there's nothing in that database. And then you hit import, okay, and then you hit choose file, and then you select the database, and then you hit choose, and then you select import database. And you'll get a message that says database import initiated. It might take a while to complete, but it doesn't take that long. And once it's done, you refresh, and now you'll see there's 295 values in the database. And it'll show you the values in the database. So we'll look at one of these here. So each item in the database has two things. One is this number, and these are fake numbers that I created, but these would be your system ID that corresponds to the member. And then you see this HTML construct, which seems kind of complicated, but this is something that CodeREAdr provided and we modified. And you don't have to know HTML. The database generator creates this for you, so you don't have to, put it in yourself. But I did want to point out at least one thing here. You'll see in here this path name here. It says file, storage, some numbers here, images, and then the name, and then a JPG. So this is the path name of a JPEG file, a picture. That's a picture that's stored on an SD card that's in the Android phone that's used for scanning. Okay, it's a path name of a JPEG file, which is the picture that's stored on an SD card that's plugged into the Android phone that's doing the scanning. So when this particular system ID is scanned, this picture will show. Basically, CodeREAdr goes and accesses this file and displays it. Okay, now this path here, storage, blah, 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 images, it actually varies based on the type of SD card that's plugged in. We don't know exactly why, but we found in testing multiple SD cards that that's the case. So in our documentation, we show you how to find out what that path name is on your phone. Once you plug that SD card in there, we show you how to figure it out. And basically what you would do is you go to your database generator, and there's a tab in here called Picture Log, and you would, it's kind of small here, but you would put that path name in here, and so that would allow CodeREAdr to find the image. Now, CodeREAdr operates gracefully if that picture does not exist on the SD card. Turns out to be graceful. By accident, we didn't have the picture there, and it was pretty graceful. It doesn't abort or anything like that. So, but we do recommend gathering pictures and putting them on the SD card. It's kind of nice. It provides, a visual verification of the members coming in and scanning. So that's something that you can do over time if you don't have those images already. Okay, so and then we have a little welcome message. You can change that in the tool if you want, and it also displays the member's name. So again, this is generated by the Tennis database generator tool that we provide. Okay, so one more thing I want to point out about databases here. For any particular database entry, you can click on barcode and get the actual QR code. But I want to show you also here, export barcodes. You can click on export barcodes, and what CodeREAdr does is create a zip file that contains all of the barcodes that are in the database. So, these are based on use the system ID, and this is the QR code that corresponds to that system ID. So, some sorors may not have a smartphone. They may not use a smartphone. Some of our Delta Deers don't use smartphones, for example. So you can use these zip code these GIFs, GIFs, and just copy and paste them onto either key tag or a business card size card, and maybe put your logo on it and their name, for example, and then you can use that to scan as opposed to using the QR code that's in the Delta app. This is the same code that's in the Delta app for a member. Okay, so that's kind of nice. Okay, so we talked about services. We talked about databases. So once you have the database and services configured, um, you would take your phone and you would log on. You download the CodeREADr app. It has this is CodeREADr.com we're looking at. So it has a counterpart, which is an app that you download to your Android phone. Um, and you would log on using the same username and password as you do on CodeREADr.com. It would recognize that you have a service defined and a database. It downloads that database to the device. And then you take your device into your meeting and set it up. And for scanning, you log on, select a service. It's ready for scanning. You scan the source in. And then once the meeting is over, you go in, you hit your little, that code that allows you to go in and upload the scan records to the server. Okay. Now we configured our service so that when uploads are done, it sends email to us. So that email would show, let's see, I think these are the ones I want to show. Yeah. Um, these are the scan records. So it would have give you a file, a CSV file that has three columns in it: a barcode, result, and timestamp. Remember the template that we had. Okay, so what you would do in order to generate an attendance sheet is you would use our attendance sheet generator tool. Okay, and again, this is a simple tool. All the complexity is hidden behind macros. And you would scan the three columns here. You would copy. Then you would go to the attendance sheet generator tool. You would scan across the three columns here. You would paste. And then you would click Generate Attendance Sheet. Okay? And you see here, it's kind of small, but you see the barcode, the timestamp, and then the first and last name of the person who signed in. And then you save this to an Excel file or print it out, and you would give it to the recording secretary or the sergeant at arms. Okay. Now, the one thing I did want to point out, if you just take the information from the file that's emailed to you, and if you kept the invalid scans in your scan records, in other words, if you didn't delete them after they were scanned, then you might have some duplicate scan records in here. So you either delete them before you upload, or delete them from the file that's emailed to you, or what you do is you go to the CodeREADr service and you filter out the bad scan records. Okay, So let's go to Scans here tab, and you will see on the left side filter. And I know, for example, we had a meeting on the 13th of April here. So you look at the date range. There's a drop-down menu. You can say today, yesterday, etc. I'm going to go in here and set custom. And I know I had a meeting on like the 13th of April. So I'm going to set time. Okay, that's the beginning. 13th. Okay. Now our meetings don't last that long, but I just want to make sure I captured everything. Okay. I put ascending here, and here is where you would filter out. You would filter out the bad scan records and services, users. You can configure. Then output format. What you want to do here is you want to select that attendance sheet template. Okay, here's those three values that we saw before, and then you hit filter. And it shows here 170 scans, so I know that's right. I know there were 170 members that scanned in that day. Okay, and these are the system IDs of those people that scanned in. And then you can either email that file to yourself or you can download it. And it queues for processing. And then it shows download. You click on download. It goes to your download directory. Okay, and then that's the file. Okay, um, the, the scan records. Okay, and then you would again use these scan records to input into the attendance sheet generator to generate your attendance sheet, and then you give that on to the recording secretary or the sergeant at arms. Okay, so let's see, how are we doing with our goals here? How to configure the CodeREADr app, we did that. We created a database and then we uploaded it. We accessed the scan records and we created a attendance sheet. So we accomplished our goals. There's one more thing that I wanted to show you before we go here, and that's rebranding. It's a nice thing that CodeREADr provides. You can actually put your logo on the app that's running on your scanning device. So we uploaded our chapter logo, and then when the service is started and configured on the actual device, it downloads your logo onto the device, so it shows. So that's a nice thing. So I think we've accomplished all of our goals for the video here, and so I hope that it's been helpful to you. And again, we have detailed documentation that goes along with our e-attendance service. So all the things that I covered in this video are in that documentation, but sometimes it's better to see um, in operation. So hopefully it's been useful for you, and so good luck, and thank you very much.